You have to be a bit careful when you're Googling Lucy Moore, because you might end up with me, but you might easily end up with Lucy Moore, who is the incredibly intelligent and glamorous and beautiful presenter of historical books and programmes on the BBC. She's very, very gorgeous. And, or you could end up with another very gorgeous Lucy Moore, who is an underwear model for Ann Summers, and is slightly differently shaped from me. But you know, it's fairly obvious who is who, frankly. This session, in the loose sort of kind of shape of the day, the two bits of the Lord's Prayer underpinning this workshop are going to be give us today our daily bread and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. And they are very much going to be kind of bubbling in the background, if you like, as thinking about hospitality, the value of hospitality in Messy Church, and also, I suppose that's the daily bread bit, and then forgiving our sins and forgiving others. This idea of this is about a team. This is very, very much a team thing. And the whole how we work together as teams and how much forgiveness is needed of the way that we mess up and that other people mess us about as well. That whole thing is huge in the way Messy Church works. So we'll keep those bubbling away in the background, but they might not be overt all the way through. Before we dive into everything, I'd like to introduce Julie. Julie, can you join me up at the front here? Indeed, she definitely deserves a clap. I don't know if many of you know Julie, but Julie is the regional coordinator for this area. So would you like to... have we got another mic? Grab a mic. And Julie, could you just tell everybody who you are and what you can do for people around here? That'd be great.
So I've only been in role for just over a year. It's a voluntary role, and it was something I was really interested in supporting. It's something that we were involved in at St Mary's in Inverurie, which is where I'm a member, and also I work part-time with the children. So how I can support you, I'm somebody on the end of a phone, or I'm very good at drinking coffee if you want to meet up for a coffee. I'm out at Kemnay, but I am mobile. So any way I can support you, whether it's questions or resources or prayer requests, then please get in touch. Jane, who works with Lucy, is always keen to hear good news stories or things that you're struggling with that everybody else in the Messy family can pray for you. So do come back to me with things like that as well. And just really here to support you in any way that you need supporting. And there's some faces that I'm seeing today that I'm getting to know now. I've spoken to some people exploring Messy Church for the first time. So I don't have all the answers, but you know, it is messy. So let's chat about it and we can learn from each other.
Thank you very much. That's brilliant. Thanks, Julie. Fabulous. So, this 40 minutes. It's really difficult to know what to do and how to do it. But what I'm proposing is to gallop through what Messy Church is. And I know a lot of you have been doing it for years and you know it. But there will be some people here who don't actually know. And also, even if you've been doing it, I've been finding that people actually sometimes appreciate being reminded what the basics are. And I was actually in Yorkshire the other week doing a training session. And before we'd even started, a lady bounced up to me at the start and she said, we do a church. We're one of the ones that has it without parents present. I think, where do I start? Oh no, you know, and you kind of want to drag her down to the crypt and bang her head against the wall, but no, let's sit down and talk about this, shall we? So sometimes it can help to just hear it from the horse's mouth again. And I'm literally going to gallop through that. Please, am I doing this wrong? Is this all right? Okay. If at any time in the gallop there's something that you want to add to from your experience, or if I've not made it clear, please stick a hand up and we'll deal with it there and then. But then I'm definitely going to leave time for questions and answers at the end. Is that okay? Oh, but make me leave time because I burble on. Right, okay, right. So, Messy Church, what is it? It's church for families to come and enjoy together, and others as well. It's not just your nuclear families coming in, it's the whole family in its biggest sense. Families and others, I suppose, is the easiest way of putting it. And it usually happens once a month. That's what most do. Some churches start it once a year at Christmas time or something. Others do it once a term to start off with and see how it goes. Most do it once a month or aspire to doing it once a month. And some do it every week. There's one near me in Southampton where I said, how on earth do you do it every week? And they said, well, we had to, because we did a trial one, and all these parents came off the estate who we've never ever seen in church before. And we said to them, have you enjoyed it? Was it good? And they said, yeah, it was great. We'll see you next week. Kind of, well, why would we turn down a missional opportunity like that? But that is extreme, and why they're not all on gin and tonic every night of the week, I don't know. But most Messy churches, it's once a month. That keeps it fresh for the team. It means that there's plenty of time for reflection and preparing for the next one. It's not a sausage machine. And also, because we're largely dealing with people right at the start of their faith journey, it keeps it special for them as well. It makes it something that they can prioritize in the month. You're only asking people to come once a month, as if they're coming to a party once a month or a festival. It keeps it special, it keeps it manageable. Has its problems, of course. How can you be faith community on once a month? But that's a bigger question. So once a month works for most people, and the shape is kind of any day of the week, and there are Messy churches every single day of the week. A warm welcome at the door, because these are people who probably aren't comfortable in a church setting. So even if you're meeting in a village hall or a pub or a school, having a warm welcome to make people feel welcomed into that space, really, really important. So you get your big smiley people on at the door. I think the best welcome I ever had was from a couple of 8-year-olds in Australia who didn't just sit at the desk and sign you in. They ran down the path towards you. Welcome, welcome! Can't do the accent. But they came dashing out like the sort of prodigal son father. It was very good. And then usually there's a brief introduction. Welcome to Messy Church today. It's lovely to see you all. We've got a fantastic session for you today. It's about somebody who was good looking, he was hunky, he was brainy, and he spent the night with some very dangerous animals. I wonder if you can work out who we're looking at today and why his story is so special and what it's got to do with your life today. Just something that gives a hint that this is not just things that were cheap at Tesco this week that we've thrown together, but some way of exploring the Bible. And people go and they do one of up to 10 different activities which are just set out in a sort of glorious cornucopia around the room. I think I would have been very stressed going to a Messy church as a child because I would have wanted to do everything. But you can either do everything, or you can just do one thing, or you can just be part of the environment without doing a thing. It's up to you how you do it. But each of those activities has something to do with the story of the day. And their whole idea is that we don't all learn in the same way. We don't all worship in the same way. We're not all the same people under God. We are different parts of the body, and we want to celebrate the different ways everybody worships. So there will be a quiet activity. There will be something raucous and construction-y. There will be something science-y. There will be something edible, always something edible, usually involving obscene amounts of icing. I feel so guilty about the state of the nation's dental health from Messy Church, but it's good fun. Fiddly things, huge things, wordy things, as much as we can bring our imagination in for those different activities. And people go off and they do this for about an hour. And as I say, they'll choose to do as much or as little as they want. And to be honest, it's all about the process being even more important than the product. Who cares if they go home with a beautiful fridge magnet or not, frankly, but how they make it, the relationship that you've built up with them across the table as they've made it, the conversations that you've had with them, all those things are far, far more important than a beautiful thing to take home. You know, who cares, frankly? The activity is often, it's our creative spark as human beings made by God, but it's much more about making a space to learn about him, to meet him in community. So there's a lot going on in that activity time. And then we all gather together for a very short celebration with story, song and prayer that brings it all together. And it's short. Ours is about a quarter of an hour. And I did visit one messy church in Portsmouth where the celebration went on for 35 minutes. And at the end I said, oh, that was quite a long celebration. Oh, you sang a lot of songs. And they said, oh, why? How long is yours? I said, oh, 15, 20 minutes max. They said, oh, is that all you can manage? It was kind of, but keeping it deliberately very short. You have to be very disciplined, don't you? You can't go off into, I wouldn't get away with this in a celebration. You have to be much more disciplined, much more clever and intelligent about the way that you use that time. And then finishing up with a meal. If I'm honest, the meal was the last bit that we added to Messy Church when we were doing it the first time. It was the last idea that came in, and it came out of total idleness in that we thought, oh, we'll be doing all this welcome and activities and celebration, then we'll have to clear up, and then we'll have to go home and cook for our own kids and homework. What if we ate together? Then somebody else would do the cooking and the shopping and the washing up, and we could just eat and then go home, throw the children in the bath. Job done. Awesome. And out of that total laziness, God gave us this gift of what it means to sit as a faith community and eat together. And people say to me, oh, we do Messy Church, but we don't do the meal. We give them a biscuit. And you think, is that the kingdom of heaven? A digestive biscuit. I'm sorry, does this represent the abundance of God's kingdom? Does it represent his provision, his generosity? Does it give you space to sit and listen to other people and talk to them and have the Holy Spirit dancing around you? No, I'm sorry, a digestive biscuit does not do this. Sit and eat a meal together. And it is the most wonderful culmination of the package, for want of a better word. God is very good. Could we have the next slide, please? The values behind Messy Church. In the very early days, we sat down with some very generous friends, mostly in the company of the Church Army team with George Lings. And he gave us some really good advice. He said, Messy Church will grow, and it'll be adapted, and it'll be contextualized wherever it goes. And that's fine. He said, let it grow, just let it grow. If people want to do the meal first, that's brilliant. Don't worry about the shape. The shape will look after itself. What you need to really be clear about from the outset is, what are your values? What's the DNA of Messy Church? What makes Messy Church Messy Church? And when we sat down and talked about it and prayed about it and tried to distill what Messy Church was all about, we came up with these 5 values. And we've stuck with them. And as we develop Messy Church in different ways, through things like the Science Project and discipleship work that's coming up, and Messy Vintage, interestingly, we try to keep true to these values. That's what makes it messy. So having Christ at the centre, so we don't just do let's do a session on Thomas the Tank Engine. Lovely though Thomas the Tank Engine is, we do stuff around Jesus and about Jesus and introducing people to Jesus. It's about hospitality and about meeting Christ in the stranger, about opening our doors. In fact, not even opening our doors, opening God's doors to an environment where God is the host and we are all guests. It's not our church that we're inviting people to, it's God's church and we're all his guests. So the person coming in through the door has just as much right to be there as I do when I've been coming for the last 90 years and paying for the whole thing. Everyone, that's a really important part of hospitality, that welcome, unconditional welcome. Creativity bubbling up through every part of it, especially in that activity time. A chance to see that Genesis spirit of God, kind of that spark that he's put in all of us being given expression. It's something about play. It's something about the being human and playing together, and that being something that makes us human and makes us the people that we're meant to be. And I think one of the glorious things in Messy Church is watching families playing together. It's something very, very wholesome and very beautiful, and a lot of people can't do it. They need to learn it because they've never been played with themselves. So, yeah, a huge privilege to be part of that. Celebration, something about knocking away this myth that church is boring. Church is not boring, church is great. And let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate the God who's at the heart of it. This wonderful, exciting, mysterious person at the heart of our faith. So celebration and all that means. And being all age. That has been a value right from the start, this idea that the best place to nurture children is in an all-age setting, and trying to create something that's as appealing to adults and to teenagers and to 1-year-olds as it is to 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, is hugely difficult, and none of us get it right. But I think the aspiration is there. And we, together with all these thousands of Messy churches around the world, we will get there. We will change the climate. It is changing notch by notch. We will get churches who know how to love each other, and more importantly, know how to love people who are different from us, which I think is right at the heart of our faith, loving people who are different from us. So anyway, yes, good. Those are values. Next one, please. 2 myths. Here's the first one. Messy Church is not just for children. It's for all ages together. We have to hammer that home because people don't hear it. It's very interesting. Yeah, all ages together. And the next one, which is possibly the hardest, if we could have that one, it's not a bridge into normal church, but a congregation in its own right. It's another congregation of your church. And this is what a lot of churches find it very hard to cope with. And I expect a lot of you here have had people in your church saying, oh, it's nice that they're coming to Messy Church, but when are they going to start coming to church? Yeah, we get it all the time, this idea that the only church that really counts is 10:30 on a Sunday morning, sitting in neat rows and listening to a sermon. That's the only way you can grow in Christ. And we're saying, frankly, there has to be an easier way of getting people to come to church on a Sunday. If that's your aim, don't do Messy Church. It's far too much like hard work and doesn't work that way. It's church in its own right. Which we get in a lot of trouble about from people who have a very different interpretation of what church is. But if you've got people gathered in the name of Christ on some sort of a journey towards him, worshipping him, reading the Bible, exploring the Bible, enjoying the sacraments when that's appropriate, it's hard to see how it's not church. But anyway, that's I accept that is a moot point. Thank you. Oh, yes. Mm.
You're saying it's in the family environment and everything like that, I get all of that. But if a child was showing an interest in coming and they had no support of a parent coming with them, would you take that on board and try to like marry them up with maybe some of the time, or do you just say no, it is just a family environment?
Um,
It's
yeah.
what I'm trying to say is, stop it becoming a kids club as well, because you get a horde of kids coming in and not enough adults there to do your thing.
Yeah, sadly, yes. And it feels horrible to turn people away when they turn up at the door. But experience shows that when you open the sluice gates a tiny bit, then you've got an unstoppable flood. And unless you're in Scalloway on Shetland, where they know the entire community intimately, they could do it with one particular family, I remember, who really needed to be there. And they were prepared to do that. But most of the places where it happens, yeah, absolutely, in a controlled way. Yes. Fantastic. Yes, grandparents. Absolutely, the grandparents being an extended family. And frankly, if it was the next door neighbours bringing them along, or the friends from school's parent bringing them along, then that's fine. That's fine. It's the whole thing of you don't want to end up running another children's club. Exactly. It changes the whole dynamic. Yeah. Great. So, moving on. No, don't apologise. No, thank you for asking. Next slide. Why the name? Let's not dwell on this, but well, it's a nice thing, but I don't like the name. Usually comes from Christians. Church shouldn't be messy. And, the simple answer is, well, it's not for you, love, so don't worry about it. But I accept that's not very helpful. I think if we can get away from the idea that it's called Messy Church because it makes your building a mess, then it would help, because what the word messy is trying to say is something that says, look, you may think that only righteous people, only people who are right with God come to church. Actually, we're all such a mess. We are such a mess. And we know that the place where God wants to deal with us is in his loving arms and in the loving arms of his family. And we're a mess. And if your life isn't perfect, if your relationships are a bit of a mess, your children never behave perfectly, frankly, you belong with us. The best place to sort out the mess is in God's family. Come and join us, and we can work with it there. And something about going out to those messy edges where Jesus spent all his time with people who weren't in the safe, sort of middle-class, educated, safe environment. He went out everywhere. He was with those people, but he was right on the edges as well with the dangerous people, the risky people, the people who only had one toe in society. He seemed to enjoy being with them, didn't he? He really loved being with them. And if we're trying to be a church like Jesus, let's keep on going out from our safe place, out to the edges. And anyway, that's really where the messy bit comes from. We do occasionally get a little bit messy as well, it has to be said, but the precision, the military precision that you need to run a messy church well is second to none. I remember standing in Canada while a woman watched in amazement as the messy church was set up. She said, it's like a military operation, isn't it? I said, absolutely. And it always gets cleared up afterwards, with the possible exception of glitter. But let's move on. Yes. And so this is the bigger picture of where Messy Church is, and then I'm going to gallop through these 3 slides. Okay, thank you. The next one. There's the team. There's me and Jane and Martin, and we work for the Bible Reading Fellowship in Abingdon near Oxford. And Jane looks after the regional coordinators. Martin visits messy churches all over the place and keeps us grounded, keeps reminding us what God's saying to the different messy churches. problems people have and what stories are coming out through the churches. So it's a great team to be part of, very supportive. Thank you. We've got a bit jumbled up there, but never mind. It's Messy Church its home is with the Bible Reading Fellowship, as I say, and it's grown under the BRF to about 3,600 registered ones, and we know that there are probably for every registered one there's 2 or 3 more that haven't registered yet. So we're talking quite a big network now, lots of denominations, and about 30, I think it's 31 countries. So it's exciting to be part of something that God is growing when you hear so many depressing stories about the church and nobody's coming anymore. I think, yes, they are. And churches are doing a fabulous job, but it's mostly done with lay people. This is on the go. So, yes, it's a good news story. Thank you. The next one. There's the countries. Yeah, one day we'll do a world cruise. That's the next plan for the sabbatical. Just dropping in a pastoral sense, you understand. Yeah. We had to find a translation for the Icelandic Messy Church, and it wouldn't fit on the logo. It's something like Kirke something, Ubral, and it just goes on and on and on. I don't even know what they call it in Croatia. I dread to think. And Germany can't make up their mind what to call it, because they say messy is no good, because it is like an old man who has collected newspapers all his life, and he keeps them stored up in his house, and then he dies. Okay, we won't use that then. They're very graphic, very graphic. Thanks, and the next one. Lots of denominations. I think that's a lovely thing, that for all our differences, actually churches doing Messy Church just help each other out and share ideas across the network, often don't even know what denomination we are. And I think the day of denominations is nearly done, because people outside the church couldn't care less whether you're a Baptist church, a Church of Scotland, Episcopalian, who cares? You're your church. So that's very exciting. Some of those we don't even know what they are, but it's very nice. Thanks, and next one. Lots of resources. We've brought a few for the bookstall today, and bookshops can supply anything you need, so do just talk to the bookshop in Aberdeen. If you need supplies of anything, they can get it for you. Because BRF publishes books, we have a way. If you said to me, what we really need in our Messy Church is, and I thought, actually, you're right, we can make that happen. And most of the books here have come out of Messy Churches saying, what we really need is. So do shout. So one of the most recent ones is the little green book called Easter Family Time, a mini book, because churches asked for something that they could put in the hands of families at Easter time with the Easter story that does not include bunnies. So what is the story of Easter? Something that can be done across a reasonably wide age group. So it's a kind of little quest book. Going backwards and forwards. If you think this, go to page 31. And this sort of thing. So that was murder to write, murder. And the next one we're writing is Family Question Time, which is even harder, because that's about, if you want to become a Christian, what sort of questions are you asking, and how might we answer those? And how do you make that an entertaining read? So that's really tough, especially without mentioning the word sin. Anyway, moving on. We've got lots of projects on the go at the moment. Messy Church does science. That's very exciting. That's the lurid green one, which is going to be great fun. Publishing in June. Got Messy Vintage, the lady clutching the love thing there. That's the one I mentioned this morning. Kleederkerk, that sort of represents all our overseas Messy Churches that are starting up with other organisations. That's the Dutch one, who are doing a great job. Got the sacraments there. We're working with, don't laugh, the Church of England Liturgical Commission. Member. It's true, I'm on the Liturgical Commission. Oh dear, how funny things work out. And to try and develop sensible ways of offering communion in a Messy Church setting that don't require all the gubbins that we need for most services, and baptism. We're involved with 40 Acts. We've done some materials for them, and Thy Kingdom Come, and so on. And, oh, yes, that's Bishop Rachel of Gloucester, and Rachel Treweek, and she's doing something on self-worth. She's got a great campaign called Lie-dentity. Lie-dentity. Do look it up if you're a Twitter person. And we're working with her because it's all about how do you help families combat all this tragic stuff that's going on with bullying in social media, and people, young people who just commit suicide, end up committing suicide because they've been told they are rubbish, they don't look right, they're not the right sort of person. How do we convince people they are loved, they are worth it because they are loved? And so we're creating a Messy Church session as a tiny, tiny part of her campaign. So we're doing a lot to keep things going and fresh. Thank you. Lots of resources, lots of support, and just make sure that you know it's all there. The website is fabulous. Loads on it. Impossible to find things, so just use the search button. That's what we do, because we can't find anything on it either. The directory is there, so if you're thinking of starting a Messy Church and you want to find a nearby one, look up your postcode on the directory and you'll find the nearby ones that are registered. You won't find the ones that haven't registered, obviously. But it's free to register, so if you've got going, just stick yourselves on there, and then Judy will be in touch to say, hello, welcome, can I help you? And she'll let you know of anything local going on. What else? Free newsletter every month. Regional coordinators, don't worry about them, they're the Yorkshire ones. We've got the books, DVD, magazine. Magazine? You use the magazine? They might have both been sold now, but we bring out a 3 times a year Get Messy. So you've always got a set of 10 activities, a celebration, and so on, for every month of the year. So you don't have to use it at all, but if you want to, it's there for you. Just saves time. Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook, and probably something lurking under the end there. Oh yes, Baker Ross. You get money off your crafts if you order through a Messy Church account and use the code BRF something. But it's on our website anyway. BRF 10 it used to be. I think they're going to give us 15% off very soon. And that gives us a little tiny bit of royalty income as well. So yeah, mail order crafts, lovely stuff, lovely stuff. And I think, if you could flick, oh look, there's even more. We rely totally on charitable giving, basically. You might think, oh, they sell lots of books, that pays for the ministry. It really doesn't. The books more or less pay for themselves because they're very affordable. So most of them, well, all bar a tiny, tiny percentage of the Messy Church costs are through churches and charitable trusts giving to this. So if there's any way that you can persuade your church that maybe giving, say, 100 quid a year or something like that to our appeal, if that's on the cards at all, we'd be hugely grateful. Because if every Messy Church just gave £100 a year, that would cover our budget and give us space to do so much more. And we don't want to charge for Messy Church. We think it's a thing of God that we want to keep on sharing out. But my boss is tearing his few remaining hairs out at the moment because we can't get seed funding anymore. As you can imagine, people want to start something new. They don't want to fund something that's ongoing. So any churches who can help us do this ministry would be really, really grateful. And the next one. Yes, the end. Right, this is just a fairly obvious thing that, the mechanics, cooking sausages for 80 people, worrying about where you're going to get the money from to run this, where is your team going to come from. You'll do all that. You'll do it. If 3,600 other churches can, you can. Yeah, all those kind of practicalities you will do. It'll take a bit of work, it's hard work, but you'll do it. But what really matters, where the rubber hits the road is, when you've got all these people coming through your doors and you've got your beautiful crafts and things to share with them, have you actually got a faith to share? Has your team got a faith to share? And interestingly, that's what's being shown up in some Messy Churches, that there's a little bit of a gap there. And sometimes it's not not having a faith to share, that it's shown up. And sometimes it's having a faith but not having the words to say it with. So it's opening a whole kind of peeling onion layers back of, oh, where do we go with this? Is this about discipleship of the families who are coming, or is it actually about our discipleship and our learning to share our story even better? So that was my gallop. I am now going to shut up and encourage you to ask some questions. So why don't you have a buzz with the person next to you to just go, oh my word, and then come up with either a comment or a question or a story from your messy church. Oh, we've only got 5 minutes. Oh, let's forget the buzz. Let's go straight for the questions. Yes. So this whole question about how do we share our faith, how do we do it as a means of sharing the gospel and living out the gospel, and I think it's quite simply going back to those values, which is interesting. It's what this workshop's called, isn't it? The values of Messy Church. Go back to those 5 values. Grab a little purple concertina leaflet if you can't remember them, or go on the website. And just spend time with God and with your team, just thinking and praying and talking through those values, using whatever literature you can find from the Messy Church stable or others, but just thinking about what does it mean to be Christ-centered? Are we being Christ-centered? It's not enough just to be doing a nice, fluffy Bible story about a lost sheep. That doesn't bring anybody closer to God. But how can we talk about who Jesus is through that story? How can we help people grow closer to him? How can we help faith to mean something in their life through that? How can we really be hospitable, the hospitality that costs, and that shows Jesus' amazing hospitality to the entire world? It's just taking those values seriously, I think, and using those as stepping stones to go, I don't like the word deeper, but it's as good an image as you can get, I think. And just keep on tapping into God, just keep on holding on to him and challenging people in your team when they're superficial, when they let things go at second best, or when they say, oh, it doesn't matter, we don't need to do that in Messy Church, we don't ever need to do communion in Messy Church, because when they're Christians, they'll come and do it on a Sunday. They won't. Do it in Messy Church. Let them taste and see in Messy Church. So, a woolly answer, I'm afraid. But, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
We have a little church in Tarvis, Aberdeenshire, and the older people actually wanted to take part, the elderly members of the congregation. So now they help to prepare the crafts before the craft day, before the messy day, because a lot of us work full time. The older ones are at home and they're quite happy to get a tray with all the stuff, all the paper. They're happy for a mess in their house, and they feel that they've contributed to that morning, and they have.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they
Fantastic.
have, and that's made a big difference. Yeah.
And sometimes people just need that excuse, don't they? And perhaps, as if that was the case in your Messy Church, saying to those older people who are preparing the stuff, oh, it'd be great if you could pray this prayer while you're doing it, and just, helping them, giving them an excuse to go that extra step. Thank you.
I love the action songs about our Father in heaven, the one that we did this morning. However, the Messy Church we're doing just now is mothers and little children, like 2 years old at the moment. So how can you introduce prayer in a way that the 2-year-old can be excited and their parents can be excited about it, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Obviously, there are 2-year-olds and 2-year-olds, but I think there's a power in just doing it and a child or a person with dementia at the other end of life is not going to understand everything cerebrally, everything that's going on in a worship service. Who does? I don't understand what's going on in communion. But being part of a worshipping community is actually a crucial part of laying down the foundation stones of faith. And even if they don't understand the words, or perhaps they've only got one arm and can't do all the actions, they're being part of that worshipping community. They're watching, they're taking a lot in. I think a lot of the teaching that goes on in Messy Church is actually non-verbal. It's people learning from just being part of what's going on and seeing things and observing it. Not, I'm now going to teach you a lesson about Jesus' hospitality. You experience that hospitality, and it goes in at a core level. So I think that's something about just do it. Let them join in. They'll understand when they're ready at a level that they're ready for. Thank you.
You've obviously got lots of resources out there. Is there anything in particular resource-wise about what to do with sort of older primary age school kids? So most of the children that we have are probably preschool up to the sort of early primary years, but we have a few older ones, and so it's just trying to find things that still engage them.
Yeah, everyone has this, I wouldn't say it's a problem, I think it's a glorious thing that we're trying to do. There's a sheet on the Messy Church stand there, which our intern did for us a year or so ago, of sort of top tips for dealing with teenagers in Messy Church. There are a couple of books which have that in mind. So Extreme Crafts Messy Church, with a kind of danger rating on them. And when the Messy Science book comes out, that'll be a similar thing. And a lot of it is around, even if you've only got preschoolers coming to your Messy Church at the moment, always having something, an activity, which is too hard for them, so that you're saying this is going to go on, because they're going to be older next year. Actually, it's going to be a very small part of time, a small length of time. They're going to need to know that this is not just for preschoolers. So even if you only have preschoolers coming, stick on activities that are too hard for them, even if nobody goes, because what you're saying without words is, this is for all ages. So stuff that is about risk, stuff that's about construction. Often competitions and games are useful for teenagers, and more fundamentally and much harder is getting to know them. And if you have a youth worker in your church, saying to the youth worker, could you come along to Messy Church, and don't have a job, but just come along as somebody who is going to get to know these 8, 9, 10-year-olds with the view to being that bridge person into their youth work life. And being a voice for them. So there's no easy answer. We haven't got it sussed yet, but there are a few little things that can be put in place. Yeah. Somebody had a question over here. Yeah, it is really. Get the activities suitable. And some of it's about the assumptions of your team as well. You know, the difference between going, oh, hello, little Johnny and mum. Here you are, little Johnny. Here's all the stuff for you. And what we're doing is we're making a fluffy sheep today. And this is what you do. Very good. Well done. Well done. And ignoring mum or older brother completely and assuming that they don't want to do it. But instead giving people the stuff to do it. Having thought through the theology of it beforehand so that you can ask a question or make a comment that's relevant to the 2-year-old, but you've also got some idea of what this story might mean to a 12-year-old as well. So it's just knowing them, knowing the story back to front, loving the story back to front, so that if nothing else, your enthusiasm kind of bubbles out for it. Even if the teenager's going, oh, she's really naff. But it's catching faith. Yeah, it's brilliant. brilliant. Get them on the team. Yeah, that's great.
So I think
Okay. Do we need to finish? Could we have?
How can you do, or do you have any resources for like Mercy Church in the neighborhood? Like with your neighbors? For example, last year we tried something because we'd been living in this neighborhood, but everyone sort of keeps to themselves. We finally got everybody to come out, but really for us, it's more about the heart of Jesus and trying to get to know them, but you get afraid to be able to bring that up. So this year I've been sort of like hesitating to do that, but there's something there. So how do you do that? You know, introducing Christ within your neighborhood, your neighbors.
Well, Messy Church is always outward looking. If it stops being outward looking, then it might as well pack up and go home. But when you've been doing Messy Church, a lot of them, after you've been doing it a while, take it a step further, and to make themselves outward looking again, go and do something in an edgy place. So it might be an outdoor Messy Church in the middle of the park or in the middle of the neighborhood, a street party type thing. That's all I can suggest, really. But just always sort of looking for where you could do something outside. A school fair will often be very happy to have a Messy Church table at it, or a farmer's market. We've had some going to farmers' markets and going down very, very well. So thinking about these sort of, where would Jesus go in this neighbourhood would be useful. I'm going to shut up. Sorry. Thank you very much indeed.